everyone, I'm Amanda from Mandy Lynn Plans. Welcome back to another video. Today is part 3 of my A5 Planner Showdown, and I am going to be comparing the Hobonichi Cousin. And today I will be comparing the Hobonichi Cousin and the Wonderland 222 A5 Unstacked. These are the most similar. There is also a stacked version, and we'll get into that a little bit later. If you haven't watched the other videos, you may also enjoy watching those. We are going to be going page by page comparing these two planners. I would love to know your thoughts on them in the comments as we go through. So starting up, I should also mention that this is the Han, and it's the prettiest of the Hobonichis, so that's partly why we're comparing these two. And then I should also mention that this is the all-in-one Wonderland 222 A5 Unstacked. I'll get into some more of those details in a little bit. So they both have a page that you can see here where they have kind of the title page where it says what it is, a spot to put your name if you want. And then this is the first printed page. So in the Hobonichi Cousin, you have a yearly spread of the current year, and then you have a little mini calendar of the year before, and then the next year mini calendar. In the Wonderland 222, you have a spot for your key and your index if you're using it kind of like a bullet journal and you want to keep track of what page you do this and that, and if you have a key where you do different markings for different symbols and they mean different things, that's where you can put that. And then there's also another 2-page spread if you have even more index. And then you flip and you get to the page that is similar to this. Now it's similar, but it's different. So instead of having one big page where you have the whole entire year of that current year, you have a half page for last year, this year, and then the next 2 years. Personally, I prefer having a big page for the current year. I don't reference these other years very often, and so to have the same amount of space for the current year and last year and then the upcoming years, I feel kind of cheated. Even though I have an extra year, I have 2026 here in the Wonderland 222, I'm not going to usually reference that. I understand that some people do, and that's probably why they have it, but that's just a personal preference. So then flipping, here is their kind of yearly spread. The Hobonichi Cousin, it looks like this. So in the Wonderland 222, you can see it has some shading, but it's not as much color as the Hobonichi Cousin. So there's colored weekends here, but I like how it's 3 months to a page, so 1/4 per page here, so that each column is a little wider, so you have more room to write. Here you have 6 months squished together on one page. You can write a little bit of something, but not very much. And then you do have a larger blank section at the bottom. So here in comparison, here's the Hobonichi Cousin and the Wonderland 222. So a little bit wider for you there. So flipping, you have all 4 quarters for the Hobonichi Cousin. And then you turn right into the monthly. Now this is the monthly from the previous year. So this is December of 2023. After you flip from the Wonderland 222 yearly pages, you have several more pages that the Hobonichi Cousin does not offer. These are their quarterly pages. It's somewhat similar, if you watched my last video, to how the Common Planner quarterlies are set up. I'm not going to talk too much about those because the next video is going to be comparing the Wonderland 222 and the Common Planner. So be on the lookout for that video next week. But here we have a quarterly page where you have a kind of smushed, like condensed little calendar for each month of the quarter. And then you have a spot for notes for each of those months also. So you have one of these pages for each of the 4 quarters in that year. So there's the 4th quarter, and then you have still more pages that the Hobonichi Cousin does not have. These are the routine tracker pages. Now you have one for all 12 months of the current year and also some additional ones too. So here you have December of 2023, so the previous year's month. Then you have a page for every month of the year, tracking your monthly habits or however you choose to use these pages. And then you have December of the current year, and then you flip to a notes page, and then a December overview before flipping to the actual monthly spread. So another unique thing about Wonderland 222 is their overview and review pages. December doesn't have a review page, but I'll show you soon with January. So you have this blank page before and after each month. But first, let's take a look at the monthly spreads. It is important to note that they do both start on a Monday. You can see here the Wonderland 222 has shading on the weekend. The Hobonichi Cousin has the colored box shadings on the weekends. They have some moon phases. The Wonderland 222 also has the moon phases, and it has words with it. So instead of just a colored circle, it actually will say new. Now it's interesting because it has it on different days. I never noticed that. So here in the Hobonichi it's on the 13th, and in the Wonderland is on the 12th. So that's interesting. Also in the Wonderland 222, you get these printed little months from the previous month and then the next month. So you have a little November and a little January. So that takes up a chunk of the sidebar. So if you like to use your entire sidebar, that's worth mentioning because you'll have less room to write here. They also have printed holidays, which is tricky, right? Because not everybody necessarily celebrates all the same holidays. The Hobonichi does not have any printed holidays. If there is a holiday that they're celebrating, usually in Japan, it will be red, just like the holidays, but there's no printing of what it actually is. And then they both count the weeks. So here you can see they both say 48. In the Wonderland, it is part of the box. In the Hobonichi Cousin, it's part of the sidebar, and that might make a difference to you. So here it says W48, W49, W50. On the Wonderland, it doesn't have the W, it just has the number. And I know a lot of people were confused at that whenever they were first flipping through their planner. They didn't understand what the numbers meant. It is the number of the week in the year. So there are 52 weeks in every year. So then when we flip to January, you can see it starts over week 1. Now, flipping to January is the next big change. So you'll see that all of the months here are at the beginning of this planner. It is not so with the Wonderland 222. So in the Wonderland 222, you have your monthly spread, and then you go into the weeklies for that week. Then you have the weeks of that month, and then you flip to the review and overview pages for the month. So here you have a December review where you can review the previous month, and then an overview where you can look at the month coming up. And then you have the January monthly. So the monthly spreads and the weekly spreads are like shuffled in instead of in the Hobonichi. All the monthlies are at the front, all 12. And then you get into the weeklies, all 52. And then you get into the data dailies. So I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. Let's compare the weekly spreads. Now, if you watched my other video, you already know this, but Wonderland 222 only this year for 2024 came out with the Unstacked version. Since they first opened, I'm not sure if it was 2019 or 2020, they have always had this stacked weekend. Saturday and Sunday, we're always sharing a column, never a sidebar. There's this bottom space where you can write to-dos if you want. But in all 3 sizes, this was the only option. Now you have an option to have the Unstacked, which is what I'm comparing to the Cousin because it's most similar. So here again, you can see the weekends are shaded just like the monthlies. And just like the monthlies on the Cousin, you have gray and red for Saturday and Sunday. In these, the timelines are both military time, but the Hobonichi Cousin goes from 5 a.m. to 4 a.m. The Wonderland 222 goes from 7 a.m. to 9:21 actually. And then there's this space at the bottom. If you needed to continue the timeline, you could, or you could just use it for extra to-dos or goals or something. They both have these printed little mini calendars with the week circled. They both have January. Here in the Wonderland 222, you have January 8th, which is what the week starts on, and January 14th, which is what the week ends on. You also have this little tab on the side that's shaded. So the month, you can see that it's January, and then you can see that it's week 2 of 52. The Hobonichi Cousin doesn't have any tabs on the weeklies. They do on the dailies. And I'm saying tabs. They're not actually sticking out. They're just shaded little boxes. The Wonderland 222 also has page numbers at the bottom of the weeklies, and the Hobonichi Cousin does not. They both do include the moon phase, and they are both on the 11th this time. So you can see that there is definitely more printed structure to these weekly spreads than in the Hobonichi Cousin. The Hobonichi Cousin is just a timeline and you can do what you want with it. The Wonderland 222 has already blocked off these chunks for you, and that might be a deal breaker depending on how you want to use your weekly spread. Or it might be helpful to you depending on how you need it. Okay, so then we flip past all of the weeklies, and like I mentioned, there's a review page and then an overview page before you get to the next monthly, and then it repeats. Now, I really like having all the months together and then all the weeks together because there's no breaking up my weeklies in a way I would prefer to not. So let me tell you what I mean. So here you have the February monthly, and then you flip and you still have January 29, 30, and 31. The only way to get around doing this is if they would give you an extra week. They would have the same weekly printed on both sides of the monthly spread, which isn't really ideal either. They just kind of do their best. Here you can see that there are 4 days of the week that's part of February, and so they stuck it behind the February monthly. I think it's the right choice. I just don't like having my weeks and months interspersed. It took a little bit to get used to it, but now that I'm used to it in the Cousin, I really like having all of my weeklies just right in this section and having my monthlies at the beginning. I love using the tabs. That really helps me separate them all out and also allows for easy flipping. So after we get through all of the weeklies and monthlies, we flip, and then in the Cousin, there is this turning the page to a new year where you can use a vision board or something similar to that. There's a little mini monthly at the bottom, and then you flip and you have your dated daily pages. And the Wonderland 222, you have your December review, and then it starts right away with their version of a daily page or notebook page. They do have a tab that says daily down at the bottom. These are numbered, and there is a printed timeline from 1 a.m. to midnight. And there's also these lines dividing the page with a little spot at the top where you can date it if you prefer. There's 3 lines with slashes in between, so you could put 1/1/24. So the structure definitely feels like it has an intended use. Obviously, you can use them however you wish. And in the all-in-one here, there are 376 dailies. They do have a slimmer option that has less dailies. The normal planner has 90 of these pages in the back. Then they also have notebooks, where if you love these pages back here, you can get an entire book filled with just these pages. It's their 2-book system planner with a little bit of these pages in the back and then another blank notebook. Or now for 2024, you can get the all-in-one. Then comparing for the Hobonichi Cousin, dated daily pages. Now these are very different. So they have the month, the date, the day of the week, the moon phase. There's a little timeline here. There's quotes at the bottom and a little mini calendar with the date circled. Like I mentioned before, there is a little box here that is shaded for all 12 months, and each month has a different colored grid. And at the beginning of the month, there is a blank page. So similar to how the Wonderland 222 had the review and the overview pages, Hobonichi gives you a blank page here. I love to use the dashboard stickers here and kind of create my own monthly collection review overview page for reference. And of course, there are enough for 365 in the Hobonichi Han and the other full book systems. There is an Avec that is the same, except it's separated out into 2 books. So you have 1 book for January to June, and then you have July to December. The contents of this are the exact same, it's just split in half so that you have thinner books to carry around. I love putting stickers in mine, and so mine gets really chunky really fast. So you can see already it's April and how much of a chunk I've already added to this one. But you have enough for all 365 days. And then there are these couple of blank, completely blank grid pages, maybe like 5 or 6, not very many at all. And then you get into these reference pages, and some of these are helpful and some of them are less than helpful, and I don't usually use them, but they're kind of fun that they included them anyway. So there they are, and a spot for your information in the back in case you were ever to lose your planner. I hope you enjoyed this page-by-page walkthrough of the Hobonichi Cousin and the Wonderland 222A5 Unstacked all-in-one. That's a lot to say. I would love to know your thoughts and comments down below, and as always, thank you so much for watching. Until next time.